I'm Dr. Jordin Wiggins, and this is the Pleasure Principles podcast. Join me on this journey where sex, science, and sensuality meet. Let's change the conversation around sex and pleasure together. Welcome to the Pleasure Principles podcast. We are here spreading the word about sex and pleasure because the way forward is through community and sisterhood. Welcome to the Pleasure Revolution. One of the biggest threats to women's health today is lack of pleasure. And that is not a headline on any news article about women's health. In fact, we're just starting to talk about it. 1 in 2 women will suffer from sexual dysfunction in their lifetime, lacking the desire to be intimate, having a really hard time getting turned on, difficulty orgasming, not orgasming, pelvic pain, difficulty staying in the moment. And we're not talking about this. Not to mention, less than 20% of women feel comfortable enough to go to their doctors about their low libido. We try pills, we read books, we buy card decks, we try new positions, we read the articles, we listen to the podcasts, buy more lingerie that sits in the closet. This doesn't work. If it did, you would not be here listening. Without answers, the women that I work with are left feeling alone, like something is wrong with them, like there is miles between them and their partner. And I can guarantee you that you are not the only woman listening to this podcast right now who thinks that there is something wrong with them because they don't really like having sex all that much, or they feel like they want it too much, maybe more than their partner. Or you're having sex out of obligation, not desire, because you feel like you have to for your partner. Or you're going to bed at a different time to avoid intimacy. Or you try and shrink your desires. You've shut down that sexual part of yourself because you've tried, or you don't really know how to initiate. You don't know how to have these conversations. You're not the only woman that holds so much shame and embarrassment about their sexuality that they haven't had sex in months or years. In this series, we are talking about Superwoman Sex. And I am so happy to be giving you the information in this way because I really, really believe that great sex, better health, more money, the life that you desire is available to you. There's just things, our conditioning that is getting in the way. I set out to open a women's health clinic. Then I realized how big the low libido, lack of desire, just sexless relationships in general was. So then I set out to fix that problem. But I realized that there was these commonalities, these traits, the way we were raised, the way that we were taught to be, to exist in this world, to shrink and hide parts of ourselves. I started noticing that I couldn't ignore all of these commonalities amongst the thousands of women that I've worked with. So we're going to be downloading my work for you today. And it is pretty special, if I do say so myself. It's been brought to my attention by my marketing team that there's a lot of copiers out there. So obviously we are doing something right. So I've noticed that these commonalities, and it's what I like to call superwomen, and how being a superwoman affects our reality. It gives us so much success and everything on one hand, but it keeps us from the connection, the intimacy, the next level on the other hand. Or if we are getting where we want to go, we're doing it overwhelmed, exhausted, burnt out, and pretty depressed. So how does being a superwoman, the kind of person who has everything together, is the backbone of their family, their office, who's always planning, organizing, keeping the wheels from falling off. You're the person that people look at you from the outside and they're like, how does she do it? This impacts your sex life. I promise you it does. Even if you're my minority, but even if you're like me and you are the higher drive partner most of the time, this superwoman conditioning is definitely affecting the sex that you are having. So even if you think it's good, it could be so much better. I hear it from the women that I work with all the time. Some of you really know already that you're overwhelmed, overscheduled, and you don't care if you have sex, but it's a problem for your partner. One of the bigger shockers is that even my superwomen who are having sex are not having the best sex. Maybe they train themselves to be turned on by acting out steps that they very well researched. Research and finding the answers is definitely a superwoman trait. But they're having sex by doing, sex by checking boxes instead of being, feeling, and receiving. In your head, as a superwoman, whether you're the high or low drive partner, goes something like this. Okay, first we're going to do this, and then we're going to kiss for this much time. And hey, wait a second, what time is it? I need to send that email. How do I look doing this? Am I doing this right? I better hurry up and try an orgasm. Oh, great, now it's over and I didn't. Or maybe you did, maybe it felt great, but you can only orgasm in one position, or you are focused on your partner. If the majority of your focus is outward, then even if you are orgasming, I can guarantee you there is so much better sex that you could be having. Because the skills that make us good in business or managing a family, planning, problem solving, achieving, are not the same skills you need to enjoy and experience a fulfilling sexual and romantic relationship. You'll often hear superwomen describing their partners as, we're a great team, or we feel like roommate, or maybe they describe their partner as their third, fourth child. But here's something that I want to tell you, superwomen: don't throw away your cape. You are always going to need your superwoman to handle things when shit goes down, but maybe we can learn to fold up the cape and put it in the closet when we want to. Because when you are always the superwoman in your relationship and you are so busy doing it all, you are overfunctioning. Those around us get to underfunction. They get to do less. And because you are not great at asking for help unless you are in the hospital or like literally sick in bed, you start to resent those around you. And oftentimes our loved ones want to help, but they just don't know how. A superwoman takes care of everything on the outside. The external validation, go with me, don't get defensive, or get defensive and take a breath and continue. So the external validation is where we end up getting our self-esteem, support. It's how we achieve goals, how we look for praise and acknowledgement. And it's all from the outside, not within. So this is fundamentally flawed, because when we are always looking for things external motivation always fails. Let's be really, really honest with ourselves, superwomen. Let's take a minute and make a list of all the things that you have started for yourself, but not finished. Maybe it was that gym membership or that online training for something at work or personally. Maybe it was the online nutrition and exercise program that you started, did for 3 weeks, and then fell off the wagon. Go back and think. You can probably make a pretty lengthy list if you're honest. We want to make everyone around us happy. We don't want to inconvenience anyone for a second. We're trying to control for and prevent any conflict or stress, but we end up creating more in a roundabout way, and definitely more stress for ourselves, our bodies, our health. We're conditioned, and we want to make sure that our outside is put together. Even if there is a big pile of shit hiding in the basement, make sure to check out episode 58. It's time to clean out the shit in your basement to figure out what I'm talking about if you missed that one. So things look good on the outside. We look like we have the happy life, the perfect job, but we're actually really lonely. We're burnt out. We're functionally depressed. And we feel like we can't even be honest about it because people like us don't get it wrong. We have the answers. We don't have the people around us to turn to for the type of support that we need. And even if you're trying to tell yourself that you do, I promise you don't, because you wouldn't feel this way if you did have the correct support. And I'm talking to you ladies, it's like, oh, my husband's great and he does this and he does that, which is lovely. And you do really have a partnership. But if everything in the rest of this episode is speaking to you, then we got something missing. So from a young age, little girls, we were earning praise. We were being told to smile. Why didn't you get a 95, only a 90 on that test? Couldn't you have made that shot or done your personal best? We were taught that we were not deserving of love exactly as we were. We were taught we had to earn it by being perfect, by hiding parts of ourselves. We were taught that feminine things, relaxing, dreaming, loving, was frivolous and weak. And this is the pattern that superwomen have to break if they want to have good sex, because good sex is all about the inside. And don't even get me starting on the conditioning against women's sexuality. And we have totally disowned that part of ourselves. It's about what you desire. It's about what makes you feel good. It's about being worthy of divine pleasure. And it's about receiving. Superwomen that are always on, they're always go, go, go. Our nervous system is in the sympathetic nervous state. You can check out my book, The Pink Canary, for all of the details on this. But when we are in that state, we are way less likely to feel and receive pleasure. Superwomen are inherently terrible at receiving. How are you at receiving compliments? How are you at receiving earth-shattering orgasms where the tears are flowing, where you're undone, you feel like you've changed, like you're not the same person before that orgasm? How are you at receiving help? How are you at taking time to rest? More importantly, how are you at taking time to rest and relax while those around you do things for you? Maybe only on Mother's Day. How are you at receiving money? We think we have to earn it all by working harder. We think that we have to make everyone else feel good at the expense of ourselves, our needs, our desires, because we're too focused on the outside. The perfectionism, the people pleasing, the control, the way our bodies look, the way we smell. And trust me, if you're the person that cannot make a decision of like what restaurant to go to because you're worried about everyone else and not yourself, then you're still definitely a people pleaser. So we're taught to turn away from our intuition and our divine feminine power. For example, have you ever had that sense that you just wanted to take the longer route home and then there ends up being a 3-car pileup on the highway? That's what I'm talking about. A small example of intuition that we're taught to not listen to. We don't trust feminine power because we've been taught it's weak. We've been told to value doing over being, accomplishing over resting, logic over feeling, research over intuition. And now we are so disconnected from those inner workings of ourselves that it is affecting our sex, our health, our success, our bank accounts. Your superwoman traits have always worked for you. So I can hear those of you like, but, I like the way I am and I don't want to change it. And I've had all this success. So what do I do? The superwoman traits got you praise in school for being so well behaved. You were great at following directions. You got awards. The superwoman traits get you promotions and bonuses. And here's the caveat: because you worked harder and thought 10 steps ahead of everyone. So you had to be promoted. And sometimes even you've done that and still didn't get promoted, but that's a whole other receiving thing. Here's the thing about these superwoman traits, because it's woman after woman that comes into my medical clinic or coaches with me, and superwoman traits put up a wall between you and others. And they put up a wall between you and the life that you really desire. That's why I always hear, I'm just not as happy as I used to be. I'm scared that my relationship is failing. And I'm embarrassed to admit it, because things in every other area is great except relationship. Maybe you're even considering your second divorce. If you are constantly in your superwoman and you are not going to experience true connection, intimacy, partnership, all of the things that are fundamental to building and keeping strong, healthy, connected, intimate relationships, are opposite of our conditioning as superwoman. We love to point fingers at our partners. If only he would help with the laundry. If only he would take on more planning and plan a trip or a date night. If only he would spend more quality time with me and put down his phone. But here's the thing. Even if they were to do those things, it doesn't feel as good as you think it should. It's a drop of water when you have been thirsty for years. But I'm going to tell you a secret, superwoman. The problem starts with us. Go with me. Go with me. We like to think because we are doing the most that the problem is external to us, but that is the same flawed thinking. It's that external thinking when we need to go internal. And I know that I'm injuring your superwoman ego just a little bit, that has been trained to try and be perfect. It's time to stop denying these things and start taking action that's going to work. You've done the therapy, you've done the personal development work for years, and still something is missing. So if you are a superwoman, and as a superwoman, if 70% of this episode speaks to you, you might not tick every single box, right? In our perfectionist brain, we're like, oh, well, that's not me. So that one thing she said, that's not me. So I must not be a superwoman. But if 60 to 70% of what I said in this episode resonated with you, come back next week for part 2 of the Superwoman Sex series. Next week, we are going to dive into how being a superwoman is impacting your whole life, from your bedroom to your health to the boardroom. Because being a superwoman isn't isolated to just impacting intimacy and pleasure. It's all connected to your experience, your self-worth, your health, and everything in between. Don't believe me? Think you're the only one superwoman who has it all together everywhere else? You're the only compartmentalizer? Tune in next week so I can show you how superwoman conditioning and feminine burnout are impacting every part of your health, relationships, wealth, and intimacy. As always, if this is speaking to you and you are ready to work with me, visit thepleasurecollective.com/coaching to apply. Have a great week, everybody.
If you like what you heard in this episode, leave me a rating. Your support helps me get discovered by more women like you. Together, we can change the conversation around women's sexual health and pleasure for you, your partners, and generations to come.